Environmental racism, also known as environmental justice work, is an issue that has plagued communities of color and low resource communities for decades. Um, what it is the issue of placing the disproportionate impact and burden of environmental degradation on communities of color and low wealth communities due to systematic issues and systematic systems of oppression that stem from racism, that stem from disenfranchisement. So when we're talking about environmental justice, it's not just environmental degradation, but it's actually the intersection of issues when it comes to lack of public transportation, to education, reproductive justice issues, food deserts, immigration. And so our communities face a number of these different issues all at the same time. For a while, and folks would still argue that still today, the priority of communities of color and low resource communities hasn't really been at the helm of those movements. In fact, it was through the exclusion of severely oppressed communities like ours that community folks rose up. And it was people from the community. It wasn't, some large green organization coming down and parachuting to save us. Folks in the community, everything from teachers to parents, students to faith leaders, came together and had enough. Folks had enough, just like with anything else. So they decided to take a stand, to rise, and to start to organize, just like what we did with labor, what communities did when it came to reproductive justice issues. The same story is true for low wealth communities of color that struggle with this disproportionate impact of carrying all of the effects of what folks tout at the national level as like benefits. We need to demand change, systematic change that strikes at the systematic levers of oppression that have continued to plague our communities. And we need to request anything and everything in not only English, but in Spanish, in Mandarin, in Vietnamese, in the language that our communities speak, so our communities understand what these detrimental effects are. We can't just continue taking hit after hit, because we know that whether it's benzene or 1,3-butadiene or the 187 different types of toxics registered under the toxic release inventory by the EPA, our communities need to know what those effects are. Our communities, we are not a community of scientists or researchers, but we know what these effects look like, that they look like slower speech patterns. They look like developmental issues, low birth weight, sterility, breast, brain, and lung cancer. We feel the pain and the loss. There is no community that should be exposed to an environment where they are scared of their water, air, or soil. Because everyone, regardless of race, income, gender, religion, it doesn't matter. We all deserve to live in a clean environment. If not for ourselves, then for our future generations. And we need to make sure that in this landscape, that the voices that are struggling at the front lines are the ones that are uplifted, because a large green organization, someone sitting in an executive office, does not know the pain of living the day-to-day exposures of environmental racism. This is a problem, and we need to demand a solution.